It was 3 a.m., the kind of hour when the world is cloaked in silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or distant car engine. I was deep in sleep, cocooned in the soft warmth of my blankets, when an unexpected, violent bang jolted me awake. My heart raced as another loud kick reverberated through the door. Someone was trying to break in. Blinking against the dim glow of my bedside lamp, I caught movement outside my front door. And there she was, Karen, the notorious law enforcer with a reputation for overstepping boundaries. She wasn't subtle. Her face was twisted with determination, her hands braced to batter the door once again. What could possibly drive her to this? The neighborhood had its petty rules and regulations, but no one had ever seen Karen take things this far. I froze for a second, processing the audacity. The sound of her kicking echoed like thunder in the narrow hallway. It was chaos in its purest form, an invasion of peace at an hour when safety is supposed to be a guarantee. My mind raced through options, all impractical in the rush of adrenaline. Should I call the police? Confront her? But something told me this was no ordinary confrontation. The banging continued, and each impact made the door tremble, as if protesting against the intrusion. My senses sharpened. I could hear every creak of the floor, every rustle of clothing, every shallow breath of the intruder. In that surreal moment, 3 a.m. transformed into a battlefield. It was not just a door being challenged, it was the sanctity of my home being tested, and I realized that this encounter was going to be far more intense than a simple law dispute. Karen's confidence was palpable as she leaned closer to the door, jingling what she proudly called her master key. She swore it could open any door in the neighborhood, a badge of authority she wielded like a weapon. In her mind, she had the power to enter anyone's home at will, and tonight, she was determined to prove it. She slid the key into the lock with a smug smile, twisting it with exaggerated precision. But then, something unexpected happened. The lock refused to yield. The key turned, rattled, and then stopped, mocking her. A flicker of frustration crossed her face. Her fingers clenched tighter around the key, and she tried again, harder this time, as if brute force could make up for failure. I could hear her muttering under her breath, a cocktail of disbelief and anger. This can't be right, it's my master key. The words drifted through the crack under the door, sharp and irritating in the dead of night. She tried once more, desperate, almost comical in her insistence, as if the key itself had betrayed her. But no matter what she did, the lock held firm. It was a moment of poetic justice. Her authority, which she wielded so carelessly during law inspections, suddenly faltered. The door remained unyielding, a silent guardian that wouldn't bow to her entitlement. Every failed attempt seemed to fuel her frustration further, her kicks and bangs growing louder, more frantic, more reckless. Little did she know, her failed master key wasn't the only thing standing between her and chaos. Behind the door, unseen but fully aware, my loyal K9s were on high alert, their ears pricked and their bodies tense. The imbalance of power had shifted. She thought she controlled the situation, but the tables were about to turn. Karen's frustration had reached a boiling point. Her master key had failed, but in her mind, rules and logic didn't matter anymore. She was determined to make entry by any means necessary. With a deep, exasperated sigh, she planted her foot and delivered another forceful kick. The door shuddered but held firm. She wasn't just persistent, she was reckless. Every kick echoed through the hallway, shattering the stillness of 3 a.m. like gunfire. I could hear her muttering threats, a strange mixture of authority and desperation. "Open up. This is my right," she yelled, as if shouting would make the door obey her whims. She had convinced herself that she was entitled to access, ignoring the boundaries that civilized people respected. But Karen didn't realize that entering my home uninvited wasn't just about trespassing, it was about crossing a line she had no business touching. I had trained my K9s to sense intrusion instantly. Their low growls, almost imperceptible at first, warned her in the language only they knew. She might have thought she could barge in without consequence, but she had no idea that she wasn't just kicking a door, she was kicking into a fortress guarded by vigilant, alert protectors. Her movements became frantic, each failed attempt fueled her irrational determination. The doorknob wobbled, the frame trembled, but the door did not give. She thought brute force would win the battle, but she had underestimated what lay behind it. Every creak of the floorboard, every subtle thump of her boots, was being recorded in the minds of the unseen sentinels waiting just beyond the threshold. What she perceived as a simple obstacle was actually the calm before the storm. The uninvited guest was about to learn that some doors, once crossed, reveal consequences far beyond what a master key could ever prepare anyone for. Behind the unyielding door, silence reigned, except for the faint, almost imperceptible sounds of paws shifting on the floor. My K9s, trained and alert, sensed every vibration, every echo of Karen's reckless attempts. They were calm, confident, and ready, guardians in their element, invisible yet omnipresent. Karen, outside, had no idea that she was no longer dealing with a simple obstacle. To her, the door was the only barrier, but she had completely underestimated the unseen defenders who waited patiently behind it. Their eyes gleamed in the dim light, muscles coiled like springs, ears perked to every sound of intrusion. They knew her intentions before she fully realized them herself. I watched from the shadows, heart pounding, adrenaline surging. Every kick she landed made my canines more alert, their growls low and menacing, a warning that only the bold, or foolish, would ignore. Karen's confidence, so carefully built on the illusion of authority, was beginning to crumble. The door was her only shield, and even that was starting to tremble under the force of her frustration. Then came a moment of clarity, for them, not for her. The growls grew louder, sharper, more commanding. It was as if the room itself had come alive with authority. Karen, oblivious to what awaited her, continued her frantic efforts, unaware that crossing the threshold would trigger a response far more formidable than any lock or key. In that split second, the balance of power shifted completely. The door was no longer just wood and metal, it was the line between audacity and consequence. She had tested it, ignored warnings, and pushed too far. And behind that barrier, my loyal K9s waited silently, ready to remind her that some forces are never to be underestimated. Karen's persistence reached its peak. Another violent kick rattled the door, and for a brief moment, I could see her hand tightening around the handle, ready to push her luck even further. But she had no idea that the unseen guardians behind the door were ready to assert their presence. The growls, once subtle, now reverberated through the hallway, low and threatening, sending a shiver down her spine. Then it happened. As she leaned forward, ready to strike again, the door shifted ever so slightly, enough for my K9s to make their move. They didn't attack recklessly, they were disciplined, controlled, but utterly unmistakable in their warning. Barking erupted, sharp and commanding, echoing like an alarm that cut through the quiet of 3 a.m. Karen froze, eyes wide with shock and a dawning realization. She had underestimated the consequences. The combination of sound, authority, and sheer presence was overwhelming. She stumbled backward, her bravado crumbling as panic replaced confidence. Every step she had taken to assert control now seemed like a grave mistake. My K9s circled behind the door, maintaining a perfect balance between threat and restraint, ensuring she understood the line she had crossed. Karen's attempts to regain control were futile. The door, once a simple barrier, had become a boundary she should never have tested. In that moment, her master key, her assumed authority, and her misplaced confidence evaporated. The silence returned, but it was different now, charged with the weight of lessons learned the hard way. By the time she finally retreated, shoulders slumped and ego bruised, the scene was set. 3 a.m. chaos, a failed intrusion, and a stark reminder that some doors guard more than just rooms. They protect respect, boundaries, and consequences that should never be ignored. That night, Karen's confidence didn't just fail, it became unforgettable, etched in memory by the guardians who waited quietly all along.